scrolls, and they're light, easy to carry, and easy to store. Now, this particular one is Japanese, and this box is characteristic of the way the Japanese take care of their scrolls. The Chinese tend to have paper, but the Japanese prefer the box. Now, the title is usually written on the outside. This would be Kanshan and Jitoku. Now, Kanshan and Jitoku are two figures who are very popular, especially in Zen Buddhism. On the inside would be the artist's name and the chalk. It's a terrible word in English, but the inkan. Now, this particular example, and notice again, the Japanese way is quite different. It's not the silk thread. And there's a special way you tie it so that you can pull it out. It's usually heavier paper as well. Now, Kanshan in the Japanese and Jitoku in Chinese is Hanshan and Shide, are in one interpretation the personification of theory and practice. Now, I'm sorry that this is in the way, but there's not much else I can do. Now, the two figures are exemplary. Kanshan is always pictured holding a scroll. Sometimes there's writing on it, sometimes there's nothing, simply empty. Jitoku is always pictured with a broom. Now, if this is a personification of theory and practice, it's obvious that the one who holds the scroll, the paper, that's theory. And then, very neatly, the one who personifies practice has a broom to sweep up after, shall we say, the musings of theory. But can you have one without the other? This again is yin and yang. You must have these two. Is theory meaningful without practice? And can practice go anywhere, know where it's going, if there isn't a guiding theory, a blueprint, you might say? Now, again, the broom allowing practice. Does it actually work? This again is yin and yang on a more abstract level. Before I go any further, let me show you something about this scroll. This is Japanese. The Chinese ones are no longer like this. The Japanese have kept the older Chinese style. Now, if you'll notice that there is a division. The top part is always longer than the bottom. And that is symbolic of yang, which is the force of heaven, and qi, and yin, the force of earth. Likewise, these two strips are called feng tai Chinese. That is wind bands, wind strips. And what blows them is the wind, and the wind is normally perceived as qi. So there's a symbolism throughout this. Now, harmony consists of taking the yang of heaven and blending it with the yin of earth, and that is the picture. Again, the very layout reflects the idea of yin and yang. They're also called in Chinese frightening sparrows, because of course the wind would keep the insects, and one of the dangers with a scroll is insect damage, holes in it. Now, qi, to get to what that is. Qi is something that is, for the most part, invisible. You cannot see it. And like all things invisible, no one can agree about what it is. The very nature of the invisible is that you cannot define it. To define anything is to set limits upon it. And qi will not simply be limited. It's usually translated as a force, a energy. But there is another idea that you should be aware of, and it comes from the Chinese scholar Zhang Dai-Yin. Probably never heard of him. He wrote a work in the 1930s that is translated into English as the Key Concepts of Chinese Philosophy. If you want to penetrate anything in Chinese thought, you have to go to that. Now, this is how he defines qi, and you'll find it rather interesting. Perhaps the best translation of the Chinese word qi is provided by Einstein's equation E equals mc squared. According to this equation, matter and energy are convertible. Now, matter and energy. Energy, you cannot see it, that would be yang. Matter, you can see it, yin. So it could be that the Chinese anticipated Einstein's formula. This is one possible interpretation of it. Now, the last term that you should know something about, the way, the Tao. And again, to show you this. This is a particularly interesting scroll because the calligraphy is such that unless you know what it is that is being depicted, you would not recognize it. But the energy of the strokes is quite extraordinary. The smaller one, this is the way, the Tao. Again, you'll notice the power of the strokes. And part of the Chinese tradition, of course, is when you write, you don't erase. You get it right the first time. No erasure. Now, Yin and Yang, similarities in, say, traditions you're more familiar with. If you remember Greek thinker Empedocles, excuse me, who had the idea of an integrating force and a disintegrating force. Arnold Toynbee's theory of barbarism alternating with civilization. This again is not something exclusive to the East. You see it in the West as well. Now, there are instances of yin and yang that you would never expect to see. For example, there is the 29th Infantry Division of the United States Army. Its shoulder patch is yin and yang. One, the regiment was formed in 1917, the division I should say, and it was made up of soldiers who came from people who fought for the North and the South. And what would you guess the colors of yin and yang are? Blue and gray. Someone understood something of that idea. And another example of yin and yang where you least expect it is in the coat of arms of the physicist Neil